In garden design in ancient Japan and China, there's a technique called shake in Japanese and zhejing in Chinese. These both translate in English to borrowed scenery. In this technique, a designer takes a distant view, such as a faraway mountain, and incorporates or borrows it into the garden composition. Even though the distant mountain is outside of the garden and far in the background, the designer features it as a continuous part of the garden itself. My name is Kristi Lin, and I'm a 4th generation Japanese American and 3rd generation Chinese American artist and landscape designer. I got my degree in landscape architecture, and I design landscapes throughout San Diego. So for me, it was fascinating to find that both Chinese and Japanese garden designers used the same borrowed scenery technique in their designs. So in this piece, I decided to use the borrowed scenery technique to explore how to incorporate or borrow my heritage into my life. As I started to do research on my heritage, I looked at old photographs of the Japanese American community in San Diego. I grew up in a church that traces one part of its lineage to the first Japanese Congregational Church in San Diego, founded in 1907. In my research, I found photos of now elderly church members as young kids growing up in a community of Japanese Americans with a Japanese enclave that used to exist in downtown San Diego, and tons of Japanese festivals and cultural events. Over the last 100 years, so much has changed. Their connection to being Japanese has really been impacted by being sent to prison camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. Experiencing the pressure to assimilate and become all-American. And now, the rising number of us, like myself, identifying as more than one ethnicity. So much has changed, and we're left with both a sense of nostalgia as well as a sense of wonder. What will happen next? My installation, Borrowed Scenery, is an exploration into how I can borrow the past and at the same time make it my own. Set in the Japanese Friendship Garden, views of the historic garden are borrowed or featured through woven screens created from my clothes that I soaked in dye baths of onion skins, turmeric, avocado peels, purple cabbage, pomegranate, black beans, and kuromame beans. With the food that I ate and the clothes that I wore, the screens represent the world that I inhabit, a world that is different from the generations that came before me, yet similar in many ways as well. The screens are woven with traditional Asian patterns as we think about the patterns and repetition in celebrating cultural holidays or cooking the same recipes over and over again. On my screens, however, the patterns are not exact replicas of the traditional patterns, and in this way they reflect how each generation naturally adds and changes these patterns in their own way. I'm really interested in how our cultures will change naturally, sort of like natural phenomena. Like this piece changing with the sunlight, blowing in the wind, fading, casting shadows, and withstanding the rain, how too will our cultures change naturally? How will they frame the ever-changing views of the world around them? And how will they continue to borrow from the past and at the same time transform beyond our imaginations.